Nobody knows why American breakfast tastes the way it does. But if you close your eyes and remember the best breakfast of your life, the one that tasted like Saturday morning, like your grandfather's laughter, like steam rising off a plate at 6 a.m., I can tell you exactly who cooked it. And it wasn't who you think. Between 1950 and 1980, Greek immigrants quietly built the backbone of American breakfast. They didn't invent eggs. They didn't invent toast. But they invented the way we eat them. The golden pancakes, the crispy hash browns, the omelet that somehow tasted better in a diner than anywhere else. These weren't accidents. They were survival. They were pride. And by the time you finish this video, you'll understand why the smell of a Greek diner at dawn is the smell of America waking up. We're about to walk through 25 meals. Some you've eaten 100 times, some you forgot existed, and every single one will connect back to a moment you didn't know you were living through. So, stay with me. Because the last dish on this list, it's going to change the way you see breakfast forever. 1. The mystery of the bottomless coffee mug. You ever wonder why diner coffee hits different? Not the taste, the ritual, the way the waitress appears before you even look up, pot in hand, topping you off without asking. That wasn't invented by some corporate training manual. That came from Greek hospitality, a tradition called philoxenia, the sacred duty to never let a guest's cup run empty. In the old country, offering coffee was offering respect. When Greek families opened diners in the 1950s, they brought that with them. Angelo Vlahos, who ran a diner in Astoria, Queens, used to say, "A man with an empty cup is a man we failed." So they trained their staff, mostly their wives, daughters, sisters, to watch every table like hawks. The coffee never stopped. It became the heartbeat of the American diner. And here's what nobody talks about. That bottomless refill wasn't just generosity. It kept you there longer, made you feel cared for, made you come back Tuesday. It was marketing disguised as love, and it worked so well, every diner in America copied it. But the Greeks? They weren't copying anyone. They were just being Greek. 2. The first real American omelet. Before Greek diners, American omelettes were flat, rubbery, and forgettable. They were scrambled eggs folded in half. Nothing more. But in 1952, a cook named Dimitris Pappas in a Newark diner changed everything. He didn't just fold the eggs, he built them. Dimitris had learned to cook in his mother's kitchen in Kalamata, where eggs were treated with respect. Low heat, butter, patience. When he got to America and saw how diners rushed everything, he refused. He'd crack 3 eggs, whisk them with a fork until they were just blended, not beaten to death, and pour them into a pan slick with melted butter. Then he'd wait, let the edges set, tilt the pan, add the filling, cheese, peppers, ham, at just the right moment, and fold it like he was tucking in a child. The result? A pillowy, golden masterpiece that didn't taste like rubber. It tasted like someone cared. Other diners noticed. They sent cooks to watch him. Within a decade, that style of omelet, fluffy, generous, filled to the brim, became the American standard. But if you ask any old Greek cook, they'll tell you, Dimitris didn't invent anything. He just refused to forget. 3. The home fry revolution. Home fries didn't used to be a thing, not really. Before the 1960s, most diners served plain boiled potatoes or bland hash. But Greek cooks saw potential in the leftovers. In Greece, nothing went to waste. Stale bread became paksamati, leftover lamb became stew. And day-old potatoes? They became something golden. Greek diner cooks would take yesterday's boiled potatoes, dice them into cubes, and toss them onto a screaming hot flat-top grill with butter, salt, pepper, and a little oregano. Just a whisper of it. They'd let them sit untouched, developing a crust before flipping them once. The result was a crispy, golden masterpiece with a soft, creamy center. Some cooks added onions, some added peppers, but the technique stayed the same: high heat, patience, and respect for the potato. By the 1970s, every diner in America had home fries on the menu. And every single one of them owed the recipe to a Greek cook who refused to waste food and knew that a little oregano could turn scraps into something people remembered. The home fry wasn't invented, it was rescued, and it became a legend. 4. The secret behind golden pancakes. There was a diner in Pittsburgh in 1958. A guy named Costas worked the morning shift, and every day people lined up for his pancakes. Not because they were bigger, they lined up because his pancakes were golden, like they glowed under the diner lights. Other cooks couldn't figure it out. Same mix, same griddle, but their pancakes came out pale and flat. Costas never told anyone his trick, but his daughter let it slip years later. Browned butter. He'd melt butter in a small pan until it smelled nutty, almost like caramel. Then he'd brush it on the griddle before pouring the batter. That browned butter gave the pancakes a color and flavor nobody else could match. Greek cooks had been browning butter for centuries, but in America, most diners just slapped cold butter on a grill. Costas brought an old-world technique to a new-world breakfast. By the 1970s, golden pancakes became the standard, and if you've ever wondered why diner pancakes taste better than the ones at home, now you know. 5. The Greek diner toast trick. Let's talk about toast. Sounds boring, right? Just bread, browned, buttered. Except in a Greek diner, toast was never just toast. When your plate came out, it wasn't soft and sad. It was crispy, golden on both sides. The butter had soaked in, but the bread still had crunch. You could hear it crack when you bit into it. Most diners in the 1960s used pop-up toasters. The toast came out dry. But Greek cooks did it on the flat top. They'd butter the bread first, both sides, then press it down on the grill with a spatula. The butter sizzled into the bread while the heat crisped it fast. It was faster. It tasted better. A cook named Stavros in Queens used to say, "Why buy a toaster when the grill does everything?" That toast became a signature. Customers asked for it by name. It sounds small, but that's how Greek diners worked. They made every part of breakfast better. 6. The birth of the breakfast skillet. Picture this: 1963. A diner in Detroit. The owner, Yanis, is staring at his weekend crowd. Factory workers, cab drivers, guys who need fuel, fast. So Yanis does something wild. He grabs a cast-iron skillet, throws in home fries, scrambled eggs, peppers, onions, sausage, covers it with cheese, and slides the whole thing, sizzling, onto the table. No plate, just iron, steaming, alive. The guy who ordered it stares like Yanis handed him treasure. He takes a bite, then another. Then he's scraping the skillet clean. Within 5 years, the breakfast skillet was everywhere. Boston to Los Angeles. It had a dozen names: the lumberjack, the Iron Man, but the idea was always the same. Everything you want, cooked together, served hot in the pan. It came from a Greek cook who understood working men don't need fancy. They need enough. But another dish was quietly becoming legend. It had a cowboy name, but Greek hands built it. 7. The legendary Western sandwich. The Western sandwich showed up on diner menus in the 1920s. Ham, eggs, peppers, onions, stuffed between 2 slices of bread. People said it came from cowboys, from railroad workers, from Chinese cooks out west, but nobody made it taste right until Greek cooks got their hands on it. The difference? They didn't just throw ingredients together. They cooked the peppers and onions down in butter until they were soft and sweet. They scrambled the eggs loose, not dry, and they grilled the sandwich, pressed it down on the flat top so the bread crisped up and the flavors melted together. A guy named Nick in Baltimore made Western sandwiches so good the line went out the door at lunch. People didn't call it a Western anymore. They called it Nick's Sandwich. And by the 1960s, that pressed, golden, perfectly layered sandwich became the standard across America. The cowboys may have started it, but the Greeks perfected it. And if you've ever had a Western that tasted like more than just eggs on bread, you were tasting their work. But while sandwiches were flying off the grill, something even simpler was quietly becoming iconic: 8. Crispy hash browns made the old world way. Hash browns existed before Greek diners, but let's be honest, they were boring. Shredded potatoes, fried, flat, a little greasy, nothing to write home about. Then Greek cooks showed up and said, "We're doing this differently." They didn't shred the potatoes into mush. They grated them by hand, rinsed off the starch, and squeezed them dry in a towel. Then they hit the flat top with oil, not butter, oil, and spread the potatoes thin, really thin, so thin they crisped up like lace. The result? Hash browns that shattered when you bit into them. Golden, crunchy, light, the kind that didn't sit heavy in your stomach but made you want to order a second plate. A diner cook in Philly named Dimitri used to say, "If it doesn't crack, I didn't make it." And he was right. By the 1970s, every diner worth visiting had crispy hash browns like his. People didn't even know they were eating a Greek technique. They just knew it tasted better than anywhere else. But hash browns were just potatoes. What Greek cooks did with bacon? That's when breakfast got dangerous. 9. The Greek-style bacon fry-up. Bacon in America was always the same, greasy, floppy, or burned to a crisp. Greek cooks looked at it and said, "This needs help." So they didn't just toss bacon on the grill and walk away. They laid it flat, but they didn't let it swim in its own fat. They tilted the grill slightly so the grease drained off while it cooked. And right at the end, just before it came off the heat, they'd hit it with a crack of black pepper, sometimes a tiny brush of honey. That little twist changed everything. The bacon came out crispy but not dry, sweet but still salty. It had texture, it had flavor. It wasn't just a side, it was a reason to order breakfast. A diner owner in Chicago named Costa said, "Americans love bacon, but they've never had good bacon." He wasn't wrong. Once people tasted his version, they started asking for it specifically. Make it the Greek way. It sounds like a small thing, but small things add up. And the next dish? It became one of the most famous breakfasts in America, and nobody knows it started in a Greek diner. 10. The strange history of the Denver omelet. The Denver omelet is as American as it gets. Ham, peppers, onions, cheese, folded into eggs. Every diner has it, every menu lists it. But here's the secret. Nobody knows where the name actually came from. Some say it started in Colorado. Others say it was a cowboy thing. But the version America fell in love with? That was built by a Greek cook in New Jersey in 1961. His name was Spiro, and he worked the morning shift at a diner off the turnpike. Spiro didn't invent the ingredients, but he changed the technique. He sautéed the peppers and onions first until they caramelized. He diced the ham small so every bite had flavor. And he didn't overcook the eggs. He kept them soft, folded them tight, and let the cheese melt inside, not on top. Within 2 years, his Denver omelet was the most ordered dish in the diner. People started calling ahead to make sure Spiro was working. Other diners copied it, and by 1970, the Denver omelet, made the Greek way, was everywhere. Cowboys may have inspired it, but Greek hands made it legendary. And what came next mixed two worlds nobody thought would work together. 11. The breakfast gyro twist. This one didn't show up until the late 1970s. By then, Greek diners were everywhere, and so were late-night crowds. College kids, cab drivers, people stumbling out of bars at 2 a.m. looking for something fast and filling. One night in Astoria, Queens, a cook named Theo ran out of breakfast sausage. The line was long, people were hungry. So he grabbed lamb from the gyro spit in the back, sliced it thin, and tossed it into scrambled eggs with onions, tomatoes, and feta. He wrapped it in pita bread and handed it over. The guy who ordered it took one bite and said, "What the hell is this?" Then he took another bite, and another. By the next weekend, people were asking for it by name. "Give me that gyro egg thing." It wasn't Greek, it wasn't American, it was both. And it worked. The breakfast gyro became a cult hit in diners across New York and Philly. Some places still serve it today, buried at the bottom of the menu like a secret handshake. It wasn't fancy, but it was proof that Greek cooks weren't afraid to break the rules. And speaking of breaking rules, the next dish made grandmothers cry. 12. The cinnamon-spiced French toast. French toast existed long before Greek diners. Bread dipped in egg, fried in butter. Simple, safe, boring. Then Greek cooks got involved and said, "We're fixing this." They didn't change the bread. They didn't change the egg. But they added something most American cooks never thought of: cinnamon, and not just a sprinkle. They whisked it directly into the egg batter with a little vanilla and a pinch of nutmeg. When that toast hit the grill, the cinnamon caramelized. The smell filled the diner, and when the plate landed in front of you, golden, dusted with powdered sugar, maybe a pat of butter melting on top, it didn't taste like breakfast. It tasted like a memory you didn't know you had. A diner in Baltimore run by a woman named Fotini became famous for it. People drove an hour just for her French toast. She never wrote the recipe down, but every Greek diner from Boston to Atlanta started doing it the same way. And suddenly, French toast wasn't boring anymore. It was something you craved, something you remembered. But while French toast stole hearts, the next dish fed entire crews before dawn. 13. The three-egg mega platter. In the 1950s, most diners served breakfast on small plates. One egg, maybe two, a couple strips of bacon, a piece of toast. It looked neat, but it didn't fill anyone up. Greek diner owners looked at that and said, "This isn't enough." So they did something radical. They made the plates bigger. And they didn't just add one egg, they added three. 3 eggs, scrambled or fried, a pile of home fries, 4 strips of bacon, sausage links, toast, sometimes pancakes on the side. They called it different things: the workers' special, the big morning, the Greek breakfast. But the idea was always the same: nobody leaves hungry. A cook named Gus in Scranton used to say, "A man works all day. He needs fuel, not decoration." And he was right. Factory workers, truckers, and coal miners started flooding into Greek diners before their shifts. They knew they'd get fed, really fed. By the 1960s, every diner in America had some version of the mega platter. It became the standard. And it started because Greek immigrants understood what it meant to work hard and need more than just a pretty plate. But not every Greek diner dish was about size. Some were about soul. And the next one came straight from home. 14. Rice pudding for breakfast. Most Americans think rice pudding is dessert, but in Greek homes, rice pudding, risogalo, was breakfast. Warm, creamy, made with milk, rice, sugar, and cinnamon on top. When Greek families opened diners, they brought it with them. At first, they only served it to regulars, but then someone tried it, and word spread. By the 1970s, rice pudding showed up on diner menus as a breakfast side. Some places served it in a bowl next to your eggs. It was warm, it was comforting, and on a cold morning, it felt like someone's grandmother made it just for you. A diner in Tarpon Springs, Florida, became famous for it. People would drive from Tampa just to have risogalo and coffee at sunrise. It wasn't flashy, but it didn't need to be. It was love in a bowl. 15. The Greek diner waffle method. Waffles in the 1950s were a gamble, sometimes crispy, usually soggy. Hotels served them, diners avoided them. They were too slow, too messy, too inconsistent. Then Greek cooks figured it out. The secret wasn't the batter. It was the waffle iron. They'd preheat it longer than anyone else, so hot you could feel the heat from 2 feet away. Then they'd brush it with melted butter, not spray. And they wouldn't lift the lid early. They'd wait until the steam stopped. When that waffle came out, it wasn't limp. It was golden, crispy outside, fluffy inside, the kind that didn't need syrup to taste good. But when you added it, the grooves held it perfectly. A diner in Atlantic City run by a guy named Christos became legendary for waffles. People ordered them at midnight. At 6 a.m., all day long. It wasn't magic. It was patience, and Greek cooks refusing to serve something half done. 16. The breakfast burger. Nobody thinks of burgers as breakfast, but in 1967, a Greek diner in Trenton, New Jersey, changed that forever. A construction crew showed up at 5 a.m. They were starving. One guy looked at the menu and said, "I don't want eggs, I want a burger." The cook, a man named Andreas, shrugged and said, "Fine." He grilled a burger patty, cracked an egg on top while it sizzled, added cheese, and sandwiched it between a toasted bun. He threw on some bacon for good measure. When he slid it across the counter, the guy stared at it like Andreas just invented fire. Within a week, half the morning crowd was ordering it. They called it the sunrise burger, the morning stack, the Greek bomb. It didn't matter. It was a burger with an egg, and it made perfect sense at 6 a.m. By the 1980s, breakfast burgers were everywhere. Fast food chains picked it up. But it started in a Greek diner with a cook who didn't care about rules, just about feeding people what they actually wanted. And speaking of breaking rules, the next one was all about presentation. 17. The mystery of the diner grill mark. You ever notice how diner food just looks better? The eggs have crispy edges, the toast has those perfect golden stripes, even the bacon looks like it came from a magazine. That wasn't luck, that was technique. Greek cooks didn't just throw food on a grill and walk away. They controlled the heat. They used the flat top like a painter uses a canvas. Hot zones, cool zones, butter in exactly the right spots. The grill marks? Those came from a trick most home cooks never learned. Greek diners used well-seasoned flat tops, and they knew exactly where the hottest spots were. They'd place the bread, the burger, the bacon right on those spots for just a few seconds. Long enough to sear a mark, not long enough to burn. A cook in Brooklyn named Stavros used to say, "People eat with their eyes first." And he was right. When your plate came out with those perfect golden marks, you believed it was going to taste good before you even took a bite. That attention to detail? That's what separated Greek diners from everyone else. And the next dish took that same care and made something nobody expected. 18. The giant breakfast burrito. The breakfast burrito is supposed to be Tex-Mex, border food. But the version that took over diners in the 1980s, that came from Greek short-order cooks in Los Angeles and Phoenix. They saw the idea, eggs, cheese, potatoes wrapped in a tortilla, and said, "We can do this better." So they stuffed it, really stuffed it. Scrambled eggs, home fries, peppers, onions, sausage, bacon, feta cheese, all wrapped tight in a grilled tortilla. Then they hit it on the flat top to crisp the outside. When you picked it up, it was heavy. When you bit into it, everything stayed inside. No mess, no falling apart, just layer after layer of flavor wrapped in a golden shell. A diner in Albuquerque, run by a Greek family, became famous for it. People called it the Greek burrito, even though there was nothing traditionally Greek about it. But that's the point. Greek cooks didn't care about tradition. They cared about making food people loved. And while burritos were taking over the Southwest, something sweeter was hiding in plain sight. 19. Lucumades for breakfast. Most Americans have never heard of lucumades, but if you walked into a Greek diner in the 1960s and knew to ask, you'd get a plate of little fried dough balls, crispy on the outside, fluffy on the inside, drizzled with honey and dusted with cinnamon. Greek families had been making them for centuries, at festivals, at celebrations. But in America, some diners started serving them at breakfast. Not on the menu, just for people who knew. A diner in Astoria, Queens kept a small batch warm every morning. Regulars would order them with coffee. One bite and you'd taste honey, warmth, and something that felt like home, even if you'd never been to Greece. By the 1970s, a few adventurous diners put them on the menu as Greek donut holes. They didn't sell like pancakes, but the people who ordered them, they came back every week. It wasn't about profit. It was about keeping a piece of the old country alive in the new one. And it worked, because food isn't just fuel, it's memory. And the next dish proved that even potatoes could carry a memory across an ocean. 20. Lemon potato home fries. Home fries were already a diner staple by the 1960s, but Greek cooks had a version most Americans never tasted. They'd toss the diced potatoes in olive oil, salt, pepper, oregano, and right at the end, they'd squeeze fresh lemon over the top. That lemon changed everything. It cut through the richness. It made the potatoes taste brighter, lighter, almost alive. And it came straight from Greek home cooking, where lemon and potatoes had been married for generations. A diner in Baltimore run by a woman named Eleni became known for it. People would ask, "Why do your home fries taste different?" She'd just smile and say, "It's the lemon." Most diners didn't adopt it. It was too subtle, too Greek. But the ones that did? They built a cult following. People who knew. And they'd order those lemon potato home fries every single time. It wasn't flashy, but it didn't need to be. Sometimes the best things are the ones only a few people understand. And speaking of underappreciated, the next dish connected two cuisines nobody thought belonged together. 21. Creamy grits inspired by Greek rice porridge. Grits are southern. Greek diners are northern and urban. But in the 1970s, a few Greek-owned diners in the South started serving grits in a way that shocked locals. They didn't just boil them in water and call it done. They cooked them low and slow in milk, the way Greek mothers made rice porridge. They stirred constantly. They added butter at the end. Sometimes a little feta, sometimes just salt and pepper. When that bowl of grits hit the table, it wasn't gritty, it wasn't bland, it was creamy, rich, almost luxurious. Southerners who'd been eating grits their whole lives took one bite and said, "Who taught you to make grits like this?" A diner in Savannah run by a Greek family became legendary for them. They didn't advertise it, they didn't put it on a sign, but word spread, and people started showing up just for the grits. It was a quiet fusion, Greek technique meeting Southern tradition. And it worked because both cultures understood the same thing. Simple food, done right, with care, becomes something more. And the next dish? It took something as simple as a BLT and made it unforgettable. 22. The Diner BLT Morning Edition. The BLT is simple: bacon, lettuce, tomato, mayo, bread. But in Greek diners, it was never that simple. First, they grilled the bacon the Greek way, crispy but not dry, with a little black pepper. Then they didn't just toast the bread. They buttered it and grilled it on the flat top until it was golden and crunchy. And here's the twist: they added a fried egg. That egg turned the BLT from a lunch sandwich into a breakfast legend. The yolk would break when you bit into it, soaking into the toast, mixing with the mayo and the tomato. It was messy. It was perfect. A diner in Philadelphia called it the Greek BLT. Others called it the breakfast BLT. But the idea was the same. Take something familiar and make it better by adding one thing people didn't expect. By the 1980s, you could find it in diners from Boston to Miami, and every time someone ordered it, they were tasting a Greek cook's refusal to leave well enough alone. But while the BLT got an upgrade, the next dish brought grease to the plate without hiding it. 23. The Breakfast Souvlaki Plate. This one didn't pretend to be American. It was Greek, and it didn't apologize. In the late 1970s, a few Greek diners in New York and Chicago started serving a breakfast plate with grilled souvlaki, marinated pork or chicken on skewers, alongside scrambled eggs, pita bread, and sliced tomatoes. Sometimes they'd add feta, sometimes olives. It wasn't on every menu, but the diners that served it built a loyal crowd: cab drivers, night shift workers, Greek immigrants who wanted a taste of home before starting their day. A diner in Greektown, Chicago, became famous for it. They'd grill the souvlaki fresh every morning, and the smell would pull people in off the street. You'd sit at the counter and they'd slide you a plate that looked nothing like pancakes and eggs, but it tasted like someone cared. It didn't go viral. It didn't need to. It was a quiet love letter to the old country, served on a plate at sunrise. And it proved that Greek diners weren't just imitating American food, they were adding their own voice to it. And speaking of voices that don't get heard enough, the next dish was doing farm to table before anyone called it that. 24. The yogurt and honey bowl. Before it was trendy, walk into any cafe today and you'll see Greek yogurt and honey on the menu. Instagrammable, expensive, trendy. But Greek diners were serving it in the 1960s, not because it was cool, because it's what Greek families ate at home. Thick, creamy yogurt, a drizzle of honey, sometimes walnuts or fruit on top. That's it. No granola, no chia seeds, just yogurt and honey, the way it had been eaten in Greece for thousands of years. Most American customers didn't order it. They wanted pancakes, they wanted eggs, but Greek families would sit in the back booths before opening and eat yogurt and honey with their coffee. And slowly, a few curious customers started asking, "What's that?" By the 1980s, some diners added it to the menu as a light breakfast option. It didn't sell much, but the people who ordered it felt like they'd discovered a secret. And they had. Because decades before Greek yogurt became a billion-dollar industry, Greek diners were serving the real thing in quiet booths at dawn. Not as a trend, as tradition. But the last dish? The last one ties this whole story together. And it's the reason Greek diners became the heart of American breakfast culture. 25. The dawn to dusk diner platter. This is the dish that defined Greek diners. It didn't have one name. The all-day breakfast, the anytime special. But the idea was always the same. You could walk into a Greek diner at 6 a.m. or 11 p.m. and order breakfast. That wasn't normal in the 1950s. Most restaurants had rules. Breakfast until 11, lunch after. But Greek diner owners said, why? They kept the griddle hot all day. They kept eggs ready around the clock. It started as survival. Greek immigrants worked long hours. They understood night shifts, the kind of exhaustion that makes you crave eggs at midnight. So they built diners that never stopped. A diner in Newark run by Dmitri became legendary. Cops, nurses, truckers. They all knew they could walk in at 3 a.m. and get eggs, toast, and coffee. No judgment, no rules. By the 1970s, all-day breakfast became standard across America. But it started because Greek immigrants understood. People don't eat by the clock. They eat when they're hungry. 25 meals, every golden pancake, every crispy hash brown, every bottomless cup of coffee. It all came from Greek immigrants who stepped off boats with nothing but recipes and work ethic. They didn't just serve breakfast. They invented the version we still crave, the one that feels like Saturday morning, like steam rising at dawn. Most of them never got credit, but their work is everywhere, in every diner, in every bite that tastes like home. So next time you sit down for breakfast, close your eyes, taste it. You're not just eating food, you're eating someone's dream.